In North Carolina, Jeffrey lay flat on the roof of a McDonald's at midnight. He fell for soft tar, pried it up, and slipped through a hole he'd cut. At dawn, when the manager and 2 crew members unlocked the door, Jeffrey stepped out with a pistol and a calm voice. He promised no one would be hurt, handed the shivering manager his own coat, marched him into the freezer, emptied the safe, and was gone before the first cruiser rolled past. 2 years earlier, he was a divorced Army vet flailing for work and dignity. At his daughter Becky's birthday, he brought old toys. She barely hid her disappointment. He told his buddy and fellow vet Steve his military skills didn't translate to real jobs. Steve disagreed. Jeffrey noticed everything. Later, outside a McDonald's handoff with his ex, Tana, he watched a repairman climb the roof. An idea clicked. Inside, he mapped routines in minutes: who opened, who counted drawers, who ignored the back corridor. The method became a ritual. Cut the roof. Drop in. Be polite. Herd staff to the freezer. Take cash. Leave quietly. He hit dozens of locations, 45 in all. The press dubbed him Roofman, a boogeyman to managers and an odd gentleman to the people he robbed. With the money, he bought Becky a band, a towering cake, the bike she begged for. Steve started connecting the dots. Then cops crashed Becky's party. Jeffrey vaulted fences and hedges, tumbled down a hill, and was cuffed in front of his daughter. He drew 15 years. From a prison phone, he reached Becky just long enough to hear that Tana had a new boyfriend. Tana cut the call. Jeffrey tore her face in the family photo and went silent. In the shop detail, he studied the rhythms, guards, brakes, and especially the delivery truck. He fashioned a plank, bent brackets, altered clothing. One day he slid under the truck, wedged the board into the frame, and hid behind it. A mirror on a stick passed beneath. No one saw him. Miles later, when the driver stopped to relieve himself, Jeffrey slipped into the trees, peeled off the jumpsuit to reveal street clothes, and thumbed a ride back to town. He watched Becky pedal her bike from across the street and kept his distance. He called Steve for exfiltration help. Too hot, Steve said, disappear for a month. A patrol rolled by. Jeffrey ducked into a toy store, pushed a cart, disappeared into the bathroom, and climbed into the drop ceiling. After closing, he checked cameras, learned angles, ate baby food from the shelves, paused the DVR with the manual he found, and claimed an empty wedge behind the bicycle display. He scrubbed it, dragged in mattresses, and built a hidden studio apartment in neon plastic. Days, he slept behind walls while families shopped. Nights, he showered from the sink, rotated clean clothes from the donation bin, and watched the news insist he was violent. Baby monitors on every aisle fed in the office audio. He watched Lee, a floor lead, ask her boss Mitch for alternate weekends to juggle custody. Mitch refused. Jeffrey noted the password she typed and quietly altered the rota to give her the time. The 4th of July came. He stepped outside to watch fireworks, then rehung the back exit latch so he could come and go. He called Steve again. Michelle answered. Steve had shipped to Afghanistan back in December. Jeffrey left a coded message, then dialed home and heard Becky laughing with her stepdad. Tana warned him off. He punched toys until his knuckles hurt. When Mitch accused a heavy-set cashier of stealing candy, Jeffrey returned every bag he'd pilfered. Lee asked for toy donations for her church drive. Mitch tossed a flyer. Jeffrey brought a sack of toys in the night, got spotted, and was pressed to stay for service. He stared at Lee in the choir, introduced himself as John, and claimed classified work when anyone asked about his life. The congregation folded him in. He kept coming. Sugar and stress wrecked his teeth. He pawned stolen game cartridges to pay a dentist who counted 14 cavities. He upgraded his wardrobe from teen to adult. At a women's group, he charmed everyone and dodged a retired cop's curiosity with the same classified line. Lee wondered if he was gay because he fit so easily with the choir ladies. He laughed it off. They went to a park, then back to her house. Afterward, she told him about her daughters. He asked to meet them. On the weekend, he arrived as a friend from church. Dee, the younger one, loved the video game swag he brought. Lindsay stayed icy and vanished to her room. Jeffrey and Dee played for hours. It felt, for a moment, like fatherhood again. Weeks slid by. Church potlucks, carved pumpkins, attempts to win Lindsay over. He sold more games to fund dinners and movie nights. The risk gnawed at him. He asked Lee to leave town with him. She wouldn't. Her life was rooted there. One late night, he heard water running. Mitch had stayed after closing. Jeffrey waited in the ceiling until Mitch stepped to the office, dropped down to snatch his drying clothes, and sprinted. Mitch glimpsed a figure. Jeffrey tripped the back alarm to sell the illusion of escape and doubled back to his hide. Police swept the store for hours, found nothing, until they noticed the DVR had been paused. Mitch complained about missing games. Local news chewed on it. Jeffrey kept seeing Lee and the church anyway. At Thanksgiving, friends told Lee to quit until the toy store squatter was caught. Jeffrey argued the man wasn't dangerous, then said she should quit, too. People noticed the contradiction. Lee scolded them for mocking someone desperate enough to bathe at work. Lindsay exploded about her mom's hours and fled the table. Later, Jeffrey coaxed apologies. The fight reignited. Hearing that Lee never let Lindsay drive, he offered lessons and cash on a used car. He white-knuckled the salesman with a fat roll of bills and let Lindsay take the wheel. She wobbled home but didn't crash. Lee's hand shook the whole way. Sunday, he met Steve and Michelle. Steve asked if he kept off the radar. No contact, no risks. Jeffrey lied. Michelle plopped a wig on his head for passport photos. Steve spun up a new identity. Price to move him out of the country. $50,000. Jeffrey swore he'd get it. That night, he tried an old pawnshop roof entry, misjudged a drop, crashed into the wrong store, and hammered through a wall into the pawn aisle, setting off alarms. He grabbed a handgun and a police vest, smashed the front glass, and ran. Back at the toy store, he added plywood to conceal his nook. Over the monitors, he listened to Mitch lay out the holiday schedule. Early opens, late closes, more customers, more cash, Christmas Eve included, tighter security. Jeffrey edited the schedule, so Lee wouldn't be on shift the day he chose. He hauled a huge tree and armfuls of gifts to her house, then sat in church, tears in his eyes while she sang. Morning of the hit, he pulled on the ski mask and stepped out with a pistol. He tied employees, moved fast toward the office. The guard reached for his sidearm. Jeffrey cracked him and blood pooled. Panic surged in the room. He had Mitch open the safe and remove the dye pack. Too late. The inkwell burst across Mitch's face. Jeffrey scooped clean bundles into a bag. At the door, someone shouted that the guard needed an ambulance. Jeffrey hesitated, dialed 911, and that minute was the one that mattered. Lee arrived early and saw the masked man. She ran. Jeffrey bolted out the back. Officers saved the guard. Detectives, this time, tore the place apart and found a hidden living space. Steve prepped tickets and documents for a flight to Venezuela the next day. On TV, footage of the robbery rolled. Steve asked questions Jeffrey dodged. Michelle fitted the wig again. Steve told him to wipe any trace he'd left, like the dentist's records. Jeffrey burned the dental office. Driving to the airport, his phone rang. Lee. He pulled over, trembling. She invited him to Christmas dinner. He cried and said yes. He arrived with wrapped boxes. Patrol cars boxed him in minutes later. Lee wept on the porch as they cuffed him. The sentence came down, 32 years. In his cell, he taped a photo of Lee's family beside the torn family picture he'd carried from before. He joined a prison group and called Becky again. Other inmates asked if he'd try another stunt. He said he owed his time. Lee visited. He apologized. She said she'd been angry, but now she thought of that strange season as an adventure. Wrong, but real. She apologized for the trap. They hugged across the table. It was a true story of Jeffrey Manchester, Roofman, who had tried to escape again in 2009 in 2017. Lee remarried and, years later, visited him once more. He works as a prison librarian and won't be up for parole until 2036.